5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
If somebody can identify what their payoff is, where they really can figure out, I'm doing this repeatedly and my payoff is I don't have to work, or I don't get held accountable for this, or I'm escaping accountability over here, or I get attention or sympathy, or if they can figure out what their payoff is, and they can then control that, whether it's for themselves or their kids or whatever. If you control the currency, then you can control the behavior.
Yeah, it just seems that people have they have this comfort in their patterns, and even if their patterns are self-destructive, even if it's drug abuse or alcoholism or the comfort in those patterns, falling into those patterns, it seems very compelling to a lot of people.
Yeah, and payoffs don't necessarily mean that it's a positive payoff.
Right.
I mean, a payoff for taking heroin is you get high, and so you're high for a while. That's not a positive payoff, but it's a payoff.
Right.
And if you get high and so you don't get a job and you don't take care of your kids, that's a payoff that you're not doing things that you need to do that you should be accountable for. It's a pathological payoff, but it's a payoff nonetheless. And so that does reward you, even though it's a pathological payoff, it's a pathological thing. You call it a reward. And if you can identify that, where they say, look, I'm not doing what I need to do, and I need to stop rewarding myself in that way and hold myself accountable. I need to be there for my kid. I tell my kid I'm going to be there every day, and I don't show up because I'm high on drugs, then I need to stop doing it. I need to not let myself get away with that, and instead require myself to show up for the kid when I say I do, say I will. And then you see what's in the kid's eyes, you share the experience with them. Now that becomes your payoff, so then you'll start showing up for your kid.
How many people take your advice? How many people just listened and try for a little bit and then bail?
It's hard to say, because I think sometimes our most productive guests are the ones that don't get it, because the mail we get, they'll say, oh, wow, that guy didn't get it or that woman didn't get it, but I saw myself in them, and I'll never say that again. I saw them being such a right fighter, or I saw them being so hard-headed or so oppositional, and I heard them say things I've said, and they left and didn't get it. I got it. I'll never do that again. So sometimes those that don't get it at all while they're there are the ones that are the best teaching tools for the millions of people that are at home watching.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? When you watch people fail and you go, oh, okay, I see that in myself.
Yeah.
I just got to not do what that guy's doing. And then also you see the stubborn pig-headedness that some people have where they won't listen to advice. And you could clearly see how they're ruining their lives by not being honest.
Yeah, and sometimes the story that we might have is maybe extreme, where you say, I don't do all 6 things they're doing, but I do 2 of them, and they are in sharp relief to me. So I get that. I ain't going to do that anymore. So, I mean, that's where I think you get a payoff. And I grew up with an alcoholic father, and it was a pretty violent home, and he was a really bad alcoholic. And I know, having grown up in that, you wind up with what I call a damaged personal truth, and you feel second class. And the problem that kids make, and because I know I did it, and I see others do it, is you compare your personal truth, what you know about yourself, and how you really live and what's really going on. You compare your personal truth to everybody else's social mask. Because you go to school and well, I know that last night the windows got kicked out of my house. I know that the utilities got turned off, and I know there was a big fight in my kitchen last night. And the kid sitting next to me, he's got on a shirt that's all ironed, and his face is all bright and clean, and he looks like he's just got it all together. And you compare yourself to that person, that kid, and you feel like you're second class. And the problem with that is we generate the results in life we think we deserve. So if you think you're damaged, you think you're second class, you will generate results that you think a second class person deserves. So if you don't fix your personal truth, then you'll spend the rest of your life saying, well, those really good results, those belong for somebody else. That's not for me. That's for somebody else. And you'll settle for second best, and you won't get what you might otherwise generate for yourself if you don't fix your personal truth. And so I think a lot of people are struggling, looking for a way to kind of get out of feeling not good about themselves and damage self-esteem, damage self-worth, and they really don't know where to go. So, and that's why I do the show. I'm not under the misapprehension that we're doing 8-minute cures up there. I mean, come on. We're not doing that. But I think if you can point people in the right direction, if you can raise their awareness, you can get them thinking about it, you can create a narrative where they at least say, how do I feel about myself? I mean, is there stuff I need to resolve? I mean, what am I saying to myself? If you can get them thinking about that, then, maybe you've done something.
I tell people to write things down. I say one of the best ways to get things done is to write things down. Write down what you're trying to get done. Write down what you need to get done on a long-term basis and what you need to get done on a short-term basis. And write off a checklist. Force yourself. Be accountable.
Yeah, the difference between a dream and a goal is a timeline and accountability.
Yeah, accountability is gigantic.
You got to have somebody, whether it's yourself or a friend or somebody that's going to say, look, did you do what you said you were going to do by this time? And if you don't, hold your feet to the fire. There's a stigma attached to mental illness, and that really bothers me. There should not be. I mean, having depression or anxiety or whatever, to me, should have no more stigma than having a knee injury or a kidney infection or diabetes. But there is a stigma attached to it. And I've tried to talk about this in a way where it's okay to talk about it and not be ashamed of it. It's okay. If you've got anxiety, you got PTSD, whatever, it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's get help for it, get it behind you, and move on. I mean, it's not something that you should be ashamed of. You get what's referred to as psychomotor retardation. There's a lessening in activity level. And I think old sayings get to be old sayings because they're profound. Like, you're not going to get a hit if you're not swinging. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're depressed and so you think slower, less actively, you behave less actively, your chance of getting rewarded goes down, right? You don't get out there and you don't mix it up socially as much. You don't apply for jobs as much. You're not as productive on your job as much. So you're less likely to get strokes. You're less likely to get rewarded. Well, maybe you go take a pill and it lifts your mood up, so you get more active, and so now you start getting pats on the back. You start getting people to engage with you more. So that lifts your mood and that takes care of it. So you took the medication short term, you're lifted back up and you're okay. Short term, it can be an alternative. You really can't go to a certain place if you don't have a little of that in you. My dad used to always say when he's working with patients, he would say, there's something about that old boy I can't stand about me. Because he'd say, you can't see it in them if you don't have a little of it in you.
Yeah.
And I think there's some truth in that.
Oh, there's 100% truth in that. That is the thing that drives me the craziest about weak people. I'm so terrified of seeing weakness and just being pathetic. I'm so terrified of seeing that in myself. I see it in other people, and it smells. I smell it like a drug sniffing dog. Like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, you smell desperation,
yes.
weakness. And if you're curious about human functioning at all, human nature at all, there's an endless menu of things you can talk about. I don't care who it is. You could pull somebody out of a car on the street, and if you're curious, you can talk to them, because everybody has a different take in life. Everybody has a different walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody talks about self-esteem and self-worth, but nobody ever talks about what it really is or how we get it. And I think I think about it in terms of self-attribution, because you know how you form opinions of other people. Like if you look at this guy and you maybe you work with this guy, and so you watch him across a couple of years, and maybe this guy shows up to work every day and he's there 15 minutes early, and he unlocks the place, gets everything ready, puts the coffee on, has his desk ready, he's all buttoned up, and man, when the bell rings, he's ready to go. And you just learn that this guy's buttoned up, ready to go, dependable, never misses, he's always there. So you attribute certain traits and characteristics to him based on your observations of him and your experience of him. Based on that, you assign certain traits and characteristics to him. But I say that's exactly the same way we form our own self-image and our own level of self-worth. We watch ourselves go through life, and we watch how we handle certain circumstances and situations.